Podtacular, the unofficial Halo Universe podcast, presents episode 824, Interview with XLR8, recorded on May 30th, 2022. Hello everyone, welcome to Podtacular, the unofficial Halo Universe podcast. I am your host, Duststorm, and on this very special episode, actually our first guest host of this year, we're starting our foray into getting some online content creators on, and our first one is XLR8. Welcome to Podtacular.
How are you? How you doing?
Doing good. It's been a busy day, but happy to be behind the microphone and finally happy to get a guest on the podcast. We've been talking to a few, including you, for the past couple of months, and just trying to nail down the time has been a little bit crazy on my part, but happy to have you on.
Dude, I am excited. This is actually the first time I've ever been on a podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this will be
I've been in all sorts of calls and stuff like that, but I've never actually been in a podcast.
Okay. Well, hopefully this won't be too daunting of an experience for you, and we won't scare you away for any potential future episodes or collaborations, but happy to have you on. And as we ask all of our guests, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Halo and what you currently do within the Halo community? And you can pick whichever one you want to answer first.
Yeah. So my first raw interaction with Halo was a very common story for many. I went over to a friend's house and he had Halo 3 and he was playing. It was just offline customs with him and his brother. And I was just sort of watching them and I'm like, what are all these crazy looking maps and weapons? Like I was super intrigued by all the wildness of it. And this is Halo. Now he was a super casual. He actually stopped playing video games after Halo 3, but that was enough to get me into it, and I would go on YouTube. Now I had a PlayStation 2 at the time, so I couldn't play Halo. I can just go to a GameStop and buy it. But I was like, let me look more into this, and I just spent time watching gameplay footage and watching multiplayer games, just pre-recorded stuff on YouTube. And I was like, I love this. This is so goofy and colorful, and it's so crazy all the time. This is amazing. And I bought. My PlayStation 2 was starting to fail. I had the iconic spring break where you had to put weight on the top for it to read the discs. And
I hadn't heard of that.
It happened to the slim versions. That was one of the ones I had. And I was like, I need a new console. And I was like, I'm going to buy an Xbox 360 because I want to play Halo. And I bought ODST. So I got that campaign and then the
entire
multiplayer. The entirety of the multiplayer suite. So I just alternated between that campaign and ODST, and then eventually when John, my buddy, when he stopped playing, he gave me Halo 3 campaign on disc, so I got to play the actual campaign. And then I got into Reach, and then my first game I was there for at launch was Halo 4. So I was a little bit late to the Halo 3 scene, but that's where I got my intro into the series. And then around the Halo 5 time, as I was really sort of branching out and making a lot of friends, a lot of people, I began to make a lot of friends with people from the studio. And I was just all inspired by how they were so positive on everything and how people looked up to them. And it was inspiring to play with them. And, little 15, 16-year-old me was like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
I get to play with the people who made the games, I loved it. And it went farther and farther. And what really shot me into what I do now with Halo is the Halo Discord. I got started with that, and just my day-to-day interactions and everything that went on for the first couple months after that release. They brought me on as a moderator, and then I got to take part in programs outside of that. And it was wild how fast all that evolved until the point where now I'm sitting here like my name is in the credits of the game.
Yeah.
You know, like I went from just a dude like had no idea what it was to like literally working on the games. It's a really cool little contrast. But what I do now is a lot of stuff everywhere. It's really hard to explain. Some of the more public facing responsibilities I have is like moderating. That's the most common one I hear about is, you know, Discord and Waypoint and Twitch, Mixer, RIP.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. But there's also stuff I do that I don't publicly talk about. It's just got a whole wide array of things and responsibilities. And sometimes it's like Overwatch, just keeping tabs on things. But for the most part, it's just sort of engaging in the community and see what's going on.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that on a few different levels. And I think a few folks, probably some of our listeners, know some of the involvement that some of our guests have had on the show. And now you're kind of part of that whole, we got a small little community group that has a little bit of the inside knowledge, and we kind of shuffle things in and out and like to keep good tabs on the community. And I think it's definitely key to have that relationship with the studio. Make sure the studio is kind of getting the latest read on what the community thinks, and also they trust us enough with giving us a couple of things and bringing our thoughts on things every now and then. But it sounds like you got a pretty accelerated start into a lot of the that kind of inner circle, and I'm kind of want to know a little bit more about your initial thoughts with Halo, as far as like you were playing Halo 3 with your buddy, you got ODST. Where did that really kind of sit with you? Like, was multiplayer more of your thing back then? Was the campaign story something that sucked you in and kept you in? Like, what was that initial thing that really solidified Halo for you, as far as you wanted to kind of stay involved and get as far deep in as you are right now?
It was definitely the story. So fun fact, not only was Halo 3 my first game, it was my first multiplayer game. Up until then, I had never actually played an online multiplayer.
What about like a split screen multiplayer?
I think I had done that on occasion, very, very rare occasion. That was like when I was at a friend's house every once in a while, or maybe like a sleepover with a cousin. But I'd say 95% of my gameplay up until that point was just me, you know, playing like Star Wars Battlefront 2 offline against the bots. You know, just having a good old Sunday afternoon, eating pretzels, playing bots. Like that was most of my time. But what really sucked me in was just the breadth of the Halo universe, and then the Spartans. I had always been fascinated by suits like Iron Man and like Ratchet and Clank, Deadlocked. That was a game I played. He had a big metal suit. I'd always been mesmerized by these concepts of powerful people and even powerful suits. So like the Spartans were right at home for me. I was like, oh, this is cool. Like these guys are strong and they can lift cars and do all sorts of crazy stuff. So, you know, that was my immediate like, oh, dude, Spartans are the coolest thing I've ever seen. These are amazing. And like learning about Master Chief and playing that campaign was pretty cool.
Super.
And like my first one was ODSTs. Yeah, but it was so cool. Like this futuristic universe, all these futuristic guns, and like aliens are coming, and I got to defend the planet. Like it was just a really cool like catch onto me, and I've been with it ever since. But I'd say what really like kept me going was Halo 4 Big Team Battle, when that came to the 360. And I got my first microphone. I'd never used a mic online before, and I got to like talk to other people. And it was funny. I didn't understand how they worked at first, so I used to go into games and yell at the enemies. I'd be like, "Why are you shooting me?" Like I'm trying to be like, I didn't understand. They couldn't hear me.
Oh,
but it was really cool, like to get to socialize online, because I never got to do that before, and just make friends. And it's wild. Some of the people that I played with back then, I still play with to this day. I actually was just playing with someone earlier. His name was Flops, where I've known him since Halo 4. So it's been like almost 10 years now, and I got to actually meet him in real life. And like, it was just a really cool time where I was like, this is really nice. I get to play these games that I love to play all the time, but I can play them with other people, and we can
really
laugh
cool.
and have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was like the next step into a little hobby I had, just playing games as a kid.
That's great. It's cool to hear that you still have some of those original like gamer relationships that you've had when you first got into the online multiplayer scene, and that you still carry those to this day. With that, the changing landscape of video games, and so many games out there, like it's not uncommon to have that kind of distance loss, but that's pretty cool to hear that you still, like, the few friends that you really started to play Halo with, you're still going with today. So that's a cool story.
Yeah, it's a really cool, like, little legacy I'm building, where it's like I have all the stuff I'm doing content, but at the end of the day, I still have all my homies.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
I'll always be there.
That's really cool. It's really inspiring to hear that, as far as being able to keep up with friends that you really still want to play with, despite, like, I mean, you've blown up on Twitch and a lot of the other content that you do, and heck, even moderating for Halo takes up a boatload of time. So the fact that you're still able to do that is really, really cool.
Yeah, I definitely can't be around all the time. Like, I'm not playing with them nightly like I used to, but
sure.
Sometimes, maybe I've streamed for 8, 9, 10, 2 weeks in a row, and I'm like, I just want to take a night off, like do some laundry and like play Siege with the boys. And I'll text my guys and I'm like, hey, like, let's get on and play, or like, let's play something else like Stardew, or who knows what. Let's play some PUBG, and we'll just get on and we'll play. And it's like I just played with them the night before.
Very good.
It's been so long. There's no, I'm just there and we're chilling.
That's really cool. So as far as the campaign stuff, you mentioned that was really the thing that really grew you into Halo, the super soldiers, the armor, that kind of stuff. What's kind of the big thing? Is it really just the armor, or is there anything else within the Halo universe that really kind of sucked you in, as far as like wanting to learn more about the background of the story, or I think you mentioned, was Halo 4 Big Team was what really solidified you in the multiplayer, but was there, kind of going back through the campaigns, any one particular campaign is like, ooh, this is like what really interests me, and once you want to push yourself into learning more about?
Yeah, I'd say it's really just the action that Halo's always had, of like a bigger than life war where there's space and giant cruisers and Mac rounds and atmosphere and all this like crazy stuff that goes on. I've always been fascinated by sci-fi, and again, like the cool, like powerful people in armor, little aspect. And I think it was just kind of the situation where everything just perfectly fit, where like I liked the multiplayer, I thought the story was cool, I could make friends playing it, there was lots of action, there's lots of sci-fi, there's so much I can look into and read and lore and all this, like all the check boxes were checked, where I could look at all the other things available to me at the time, and I would say nothing checks all the check boxes like Halo does. That's
cool. Halo, I think, has a unique perspective in that, or at least the kind of the Halo collective franchise. Still a couple things I think we're waiting for in Infinite to get here, but hopefully in time those will come.
In time.
Yeah. So for, I guess the next kind of logical question is, given being a content creator and whatnot, what's your favorite campaign story?
That one's tricky. There's little things I liked about all the campaigns. I'd say probably Halo Infinite.
Okay.
The newest one. I liked Halo 4 before that. Halo 4 was cool because I got to see all the crazy worlds. Like a lot of the Halo and the older ones, it was always Earth-based. ODST, you're walking through New Mombasa. Halo 3, you're going through the jungle and all that stuff, and you're on High Charity. You are in the ring for a couple bit. That's pretty cool, but it's still like Pacific Northwest themed. There's no like craziness. With Halo Infinite, it all was the same theme, but the sense of exploration was so much more immense. And the game was just so visually beautiful, where I was just locked in of the sense of like, it feels like I'm playing Skyrim, but it's in the universe I love, where it's Halo, and there's grunts, and they're screaming at me, and there's elites, and there's brutes, and like everything that I love about Halo in a larger, more explorable campaign, where I feel like I don't have to do the objective. I can just kind of wander around and look at stuff, and I don't feel pressured. I don't have someone in my ear yelling. Well, there are a couple of points in the campaign where they do yell. You're like, hey, go check out the structure, go do this. But for the most part, the free roam aspect was something that Halo has always been missing for my personal tastes. A CE kind of had it. It was really nice and open, but it was still linear in an aspect, where Infinite is just, here's a map, go explore, do things in the order and the like that you want to. And it was an experience where I sat back after finishing it and I was like, I think that was a very easy, best campaign I've ever played for Halo.
It's definitely, for me, up on that Halo 2 tier campaign. I'm still kind of mentally trying to weigh how Halo 2 brought in the Arbiter and the Covenant side of the story, and you had this duality going on back and forth.
Yeah.
And then, like you're saying, the whole open world aspect to Halo, like, that feels like what the Halo experience should be.
Yeah.
So
I'd say there were definitely moments where the story was a little out of whack, where I was like, okay, I defeated the main character. Like, oh no, there's another one.
Sure.
Okay. There was definitely moments where the plot fell through for me, but that was far triumphed by just playing the campaign and just the exploring and finding weird weapons and like all the little nooks and crannies of the ring. Like the actual play for me, finding a giant cheeseburger in a cave, like the stuff like that.
That Easter egg was crazy.
It filled in the lack that the plot brought to it.
Okay. So you weren't a huge fan of the story necessarily?
I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was I thoroughly enjoyed the new Halo plot of like Cortana going crazy. I think it was a good way to wrap that up and sort of move everything forward. And I'm excited that we're going into more Chief versus the Banished now, because the Banished, I think, are some of the coolest, most aggressive, most like actually imposing opponents we've ever had in Halo.
Yeah. As far as where we've been with the Flood and the Covenant, it's almost like that initial encounter that you get in Halo CE. You're really lining up kind of a brand new story. So there's that mysterious aspect to it. And then when the Flood shows up, like, well, what's this new thing? And it's a threat to the galaxy in Halo 2, and you learn a little bit more about it. And that's kind of almost the pinnacle of that story before Halo 3 kind of concludes it. But then for Halo Wars 2 and Halo Infinite, this whole Banished thing, they've done a really good job with this faction. And I can't wait to see what more happens, either through, well, hopefully there's Halo Infinite DLC. They haven't said anything, but it kind of doesn't make sense to not have DLC at this point.
Yeah,
with the 10-year lifespan.
There's not going to be anything over 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
It's going to be, I think, cool to what they can come up with. I think aside from the game having to be delayed and a lot of the key features not yet released with Halo Infinite, it's still kind of on edge, I think, for some folks, which makes a little sense, but at the same time, at least 343 is kind of committing to giving us some of those things. I just hope that it comes sooner rather than later.
Yeah, there's definitely some oddities going on, but I think we're in for a very fun ride, and I'm definitely excited for what's more to come. Yeah, especially around the weapon.
So, done with the easy questions. Let's move on to a little bit more difficult questions.
Sure.
So, what got you interested into streaming? And I guess, did you start kind of in the Halo 4 big team and start streaming on Twitch, or did you start with Mixer, or I guess maybe Beam at the time?
I tried some oddities like throughout Halo 5, just for fun, like just to learn and sort of experience it. But the big thing that made me want to become a creator was I was working at Marriott at the time. Before I worked at Apple, which we can talk about that later. I used to work as a tradesman in so I ended up at Marriott, but before that I worked at several businesses for like fire, demo, wind, water, damage, like all sorts of crazy stuff. So I knew like the plumbing, the HVAC, electrical, all that good stuff. And I was just in this cycle of like, okay, I go to work and I come home, I don't really do anything. I sleep and maybe go to the gym. Like life was really boring and I wasn't really inspired. And someone I'm very close to was like, you got to start something, man. Like you got to like, let's start a business, or like, what can we do? You know, what are you going to chase? And I was just kind of stuck. And then like, it was such a pressure on me, those words of like, you're in a spot and you need to find something. And I woke up one day and I was like, I love video games. And when I'm not working, I'm playing video games. And when I am at work, I'm thinking about being home playing video games. And like, I was like, why don't I just make a hobby out of gaming? Like, because it was still back during the time where, back in like 2018-ish, where Fortnite was about a year in, and it was starting to grow, like the concept of gaming being more than just like a hobby kids do. It was starting to get out of that phase of being like real taboo to be an adult who still plays a lot of games.
Sure.
And I was like, I think I want to be a creator, or I want to play games with people, and I want to make something of it. I want to find a sense of purpose in doing it.
Nice.
And it went through iterations. I made Instagram content. I figured out how to edit on YouTube, but I really enjoyed streaming. I used to watch a lot of people on Twitch. So prior to me streaming every day, I used to watch Twitch every day. And even though I never played it, I used to watch a lot of like Fortnite players back when Fortnite was like the peak of streaming. And I watched like Ninja and Tfue and Cypher and Tim the Tam and all this. I watched them play. And then Warzone came around and I would watch those guys play that. And I was just like, this is so much fun. Just sitting here watching, and everyone else is watching. And when something happens, we all react, and it's real fun. And where you get to interact with the streamer, I was like, this is amazing. Like I want to try this. And I took like little stabs at it. They were more like me learning and reviewing. And I still to this day go back and watch my VODs and see if I can improve anything. But it was more so me just kind of collecting info on how to do it. And then around November 2020, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stream. And I think a Halo 3 had just hit MCC PC, I'm pretty sure, around then. Or like Halo 4 is about to come out, something like that. And I just started streaming it, and I was having fun. Yeah. And I was doing pretty good for someone who was starting out from essentially nothing. And then I fell really sick, and I was actually bedbound for about 6 to 7 months. Ooh. Like I couldn't physically leave my bed. It was a very, probably the darkest time of my life.
Oh,
but
I'm sorry.
In that time, I was able to really mentally reflect and understand, like, these things I thought important were not important. And these things that I thought weren't important truly are important. And that's where I realized, like, Halo is what I need. And I want to be in this community, and I want to continue to be involved. And I saw where all my pockets were. I knew I was good in the creator, or I was good in the moderator side of things and the outlook side of things. And I was continuing to grow close to the company, but like I was still had that hole of like, of reaching out to other people. And that's where content filled that. And all my priorities kind of lined up in front of me. And when I was healthy enough, I was like, this is it. Like my goals are clear. My vision for where my life wants to go and what I want to do with Halo is here. And the only barrier between making it a reality is me doing it. And that's when, life was changed ever since. And ever since, with the exception of vacations, I have not gone more than like 2 days without streaming or creating content or posting on Twitter, like just being involved and trying to make a difference.
That's incredible. Kudos to you, man. That's a rare gift to just know what you want to do and go and seize the opportunity to do it. So good for you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really
been quite the journey.
I bet. But no journey is not without its trials and triumphs. So hopefully that's an inspiration to someone out there, because that's a really cool story.
Yeah, there's a lot more details to it, for sure. And it was relating to like the sickness. Like it it was at the point where like my life was in question and we didn't really know what was going to happen. And that, like, having lived to that point, I think that's honestly why I do so well at what I do. Is there's a phrase that always hits my mind when I think about this story and the topic, which is you don't know what you have until it's gone.
Yeah, all that perspective.
Yeah, it's like I don't care if I post something and it doesn't do well, or if I get hate mail and someone says you're trash the content. Like, that thing doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't even faze me, because I'm just happy to be here, because I know what it's like to sit there and go like, you know, I may not be here next week. Wow. And I don't really know what to do about that. And like having that aspect of being so aware of how much privilege I have and how lucky I am to be here, and how tomorrow is not promised, like that just drives everything I do. I think that's why one of the most common pieces of feedback I receive is like, I like how you're just honest and you're happy. It's like, yeah, because that's who I am. That's
awesome. And honestly, like watching your streams and watching your interactions on Twitter, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why I kind of picked you out to be a guest on the show, because every gaming community has its corner of fans that make a fuss, and like yeah. Halo's not an exception. That's kind of the norm in the gaming industry. It's something that happens. It's not something that we're very proud of, and I think there were days when it wasn't as bad, but maybe that's just me being naive or just hopeful, thinking of past memories with Halo.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see a lot of, or some faces that are out there just trying to promote the game and just saying, hey, Halo is a fun experience, and you're the ones that make it fun or not. If you don't enjoy it, then, I mean, it's sorry that you don't enjoy it, but don't bring it down for everyone else.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a rough spot too, because Halo is one of the longest legacy titles that are still going. So, you know, like there is no, you know, prequel to Apex Legends that people are comparing it to. And there's no, there's such a grand history of Halo, and such a diverse, like every game was so different than the other one. It's definitely a rough spot where there's so much more historical points to make feedback on, and there's so much more to compare it to. There was a phrase John told me one time that I loved, and he said, comparison is the thief of all joy. And it's just, Halo is in such a rough spot because there's so much Halo to compare itself to.
Well, and in a way, you can't really compare it necessarily because it's not the same game. And if you want to go play that game technically still exists.
Yeah, exactly.
And people are afraid of change. That's not something that is uncommon or we don't know about. But at the same time, we have to like move on and continue to improve and just learn that. I mean, the biggest thing is, I think that I don't like seeing is when people go out and attack specific individuals, and because like people are at the studio are trying to do what they know how to do best, and no one is intentionally trying to bring down the franchise or make it worse or anything like that. Like no one in their right mind would be doing that, but for some reason people think that 343 is killing Halo when they're the ones actually keeping it alive, because look, new games are coming out.
Yeah, it is. It really, it's shocking to me. Like, if Halo didn't have such a name behind it, like think about, you know, if I don't know, if BioWare came out with a BioShock game and it was garbage, they're not going to make another one, and that's what happened with the last one. Technically, is, you know, like even if there's a couple games behind it, if there's no real way to capitalize off of it, they're not going to make another game. And the love that the devs have poured into the games time and time again, especially with some of those guys that have been there for so long, like the reason these games are still there is because of how much they pour into each title.
Yeah. It's blood, sweat, and tears, especially when it comes to that final crunch to get the game out.
Yeah, if we were any other franchise, we wouldn't be here. We would still be going like we would be the equivalent of like the Half-Life fandom of like, when's the next game gonna be? It's been 15 years. Like, you know, we'd be like, when's the next game, please?
Right.
But, you know, we always know there's a new game coming, or we always know there's an update coming. We always know like something's coming. Where I don't think any Halo fans ever sat there going like, man, I wonder if Halo's never going to come back after this.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a luxury a lot of fans take advantage of that don't realize it's there.
I mean, I'll say it again, 343 is the reason why Halo still has games coming out. And honestly, for those that play Halo Wars wouldn't exist if it wasn't for, well, no, I guess
that one's a weird spot for Halo Wars.
Bungie didn't want to do it, but Microsoft kind of forced them to do it.
Yeah,
like
I will say I thoroughly enjoyed those games, and if a third one came by, I would download it, I'd play it, I'd call the boys up, be like, "There's another one coming out, guys! Like, let's go play it." You know, like it. You know, I love that game. It's definitely in a weird spot of like, it's not like in terms of the RTS genre, it's definitely a weird spot. I understand why they're not like, you know, rushing out the gate to get another one.
Mm-hmm.
But, and you know, the people who made those games, a lot of them are working either on Infinite or other projects. It's definitely a weird time, and especially like with Halo Infinite and the weird spot it's in, you know, I don't think anybody would not understand why they don't like prioritize a third game to add on top of all the stuff they already, you know, are working on with Infinite. But
because that's what people want, is people working on another game while people are complaining about issues.
Yeah. Halo Wars is definitely in a weird spot, but I assume we'll eventually get a third game. There's a lot of untapped material, especially with like Forerunners. There's so much we could put in there that we haven't even, you know, Halo Wars has only ever touched like Covenant, Unity, Banished. You know, the whole Promethean thing, like that could be put in a game, and right there alone is enough content for Halo Wars 3. So I assume there's more brightness on the horizon for the fans of that line of games as well.
There's so much story that's been teed up that could possibly be executed on. The story and the universe of Halo is just incredible. So I think it's just one of those things where, I mean, you gotta give at least credit where credit's due in the game. And if you don't like the game, then not everyone's gonna like everything that everyone puts out. I mean, that's that's kind of just the nature of the beast. And I think for us, really, there's some things we don't like. We've talked about on the podcast several things that we're not happy about that didn't come to fruition. Like our main issue was the reach customization style system that we were promised and we don't have. But that doesn't mean that we hate 343's guts or hate the game. It's just one of those things that, we were disappointed, but we're not going to let that impact our enjoyment of the game overall.
Yeah, it is. And there's always room for growth there too, but you know, it's not, I understand why people are upset about things, but I think we have a lot of room for growth there. And I think even though it's, you know, the Doom posting is definitely excessive, I think we're in the right direction. You know, we're getting cross-core.
Yeah.
And if people had just, if the whole customization was just like, you know, 15% of the community being like, what is this? And the other were like, I don't care. Look at my cat ears. Like, if the majority were just going, look at my cat ears, like, then, you know, we wouldn't be getting cross-core. We wouldn't be getting reduced shop prices. Like, so we're definitely going in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, the studio obviously cares. It's not like they don't care. If anyone out there saying that 343 doesn't listen, just look at the changes that are being made. Sure, they're trying to make changes what they think is going to make the game better. And we might not always agree with it, but the fact that they're reverting some of those changes means they're listening.
Yeah, the hardest part about being a game studio is you have to be the good guy and the bad guy at the same time.
Yeah. And honestly, in the game industry, it's one of those things where the players don't always know what the players want. There's a whole like psychology aspect to it where you might think you know what you want, but you don't really know what you want. And then there's also market trends, because we all know how players don't like the whole loot box system and some aspects of the season pass, but then that's what the market trends show is profitable.
Yeah, it's a weird time where there's a lot of benign feedback going around. It's obviously everyone wants a free game where everything in it is free and you don't have to buy the game. And I'm sure the devs, if they had the opportunity, would make, a free game where everything's free and you don't have to earn anything, or like everything's only earned through gameplay and there's no possible way for you to spend money, right? But that is just not something.
Yeah.
Realistically, yeah.
Well, let's get back on the topic of you, since we're here to talk about you and what you do.
Sure. What's your first question?
So you stream a lot on Twitch. You mentioned before that you had streamed on Mixer previously. Did you initially start on Mixer, or did you start on Beam and then obviously made the change over to Twitch whenever Mixer left?
I streamed on Mixer like once or twice. And then for the most part, it was Twitch. Systematically, I kind of knew like, oh, Halo is Mixer based, but the majority of watch time and the majority of viewers and all, like, Twitch owns the market share. So I knew it was like, well, I could grow faster on Mixer, but I can only go so far. Long term, Twitch is where I should be if we're looking at long term factors.
Sure.
I did get to, one time I got to host the community play date when they did those every Wednesday.
Nice.
I got to host, or I think it was like Tuesday. I got to actually host that on Mixer one time. That was pretty cool. And essentially, like, the devs were with me and they would read the chat from my chat and answer the questions on stream. It was a really, really cool thing to it. But I was about to switch to Mixer. I was thinking like, well, for, long term, Twitch is definitely where I want to be. But short term, it's probably super easy to develop on Mixer. I should give it a shot. And I was prepping. I was using Streamlabs OBS at the time. I was prepping an alternate profile to use on Mixer with everything set up properly and 10,000 bit rate and all that stuff. And about a week before I pulled the trigger, I had this in my head of like, I'm going to do it next week.
Mm-hmm.
Like a day after I placed that into my head, like literally the next day, they announced the Mixer was shutting down. And I was like, ooh.
Dodged that bullet.
Ooh, missed that one. Hey.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. So almost went like pretty religiously on Mixer, but it just never came to be.
Gotcha. I think you lucked out there.
Yeah, it was very, very close.
I knew a few people who were either on the verge of getting partnered with Mixer or had just gotten partner like within 2 weeks of that announcement. And it's like, well, what was all that for?
I mean, in a positive light, like watching a lot of the creators move to Twitch it seemed pretty flawlessly for a lot of them. Now, some of them did move to Facebook, but the majority of the ones that I kept eyes on moved to Twitch. And it was pretty seamless. And they were rocking, still good numbers. They were still, most of them were top 25 of whatever Halo game, whatever category they were streaming in. Like, they seemed to move over pretty flawlessly, and they definitely benefited from the growth they had on Mixer. So even though it was kind of disappointing, like, well, this is where everyone watches me. Like, it seemed like a lot of them adapted pretty well, and it definitely could have been a whole lot worse, but turned out pretty well for a lot of people.
That's good. Yeah, I know Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, the whole discussion around which platform's better, which one's growing and whatnot is always going to be a contentious one, but it's glad to hear that at least you were able to hop on board the Twitch train and really, like you kind of mentioned, get a pretty decent following going out the gate. Yeah,
it was a pretty good time.
Did you find
for
any particular style as you were kind of, I think you mentioned doing a couple of test streams or trying things out a little bit and kind of seeing what you felt good about or not good about. Did you do some initial streams to kind of get feedback on what people liked, or did you just kind of do some looking at other streams to kind of build what you think you wanted to have as your brand?
It was more so me learning the technology. of like how to use OBS, how to use Streamlabs, you know, how to set up a camera, what is color balance, what is auto exposure, right? What is bit rate? What is changing this do? How do I set my X264 preset? Like, I spent so much time processing that stuff and really just figuring out how to stream.
Okay.
But I'd say like one of my biggest inspirations was not myself. It was another streamer. I used to watch a lot of Tfue, and I used to love how he would, believe it or not, I used to love how he would sparingly interact with chat, because my previous experiences with streamers before that was always like overdone. And I have always hated like fake faces when it comes to content. I hate when people, you know, overdo it when, you know, they're playing and they're mad and they're not talking, and then, you know, someone subs and all of a sudden, oh, it's all smiles. Oh man, hey, let's get some hype in the chat. Like it's just doing it for the, gotcha. Yeah. Watching Tfue, and really, he was the inspiration where I got to see like, there's 50,000 people watching this guy. He's not even reading chat. Right. If this kind of content can thrive, then I don't need to put a fake face on. And that was part of solidifying my courage to just be like, I'm just going to stream and create content, and I'm going to be myself. And I don't have to, you know, dye my hair blue and do the funky dance. I can just, you know, I don't have to wear the mustache and say stuff. I can just stream and be myself. And, you know, when someone donates 5 subs, I go, hey, thank you, man. I appreciate that. You know, it means a lot to me. And I keep playing. I don't have to make a big deal of it. I don't have to sit there and scream at chat and try and drum up a whole fake scenario. You know, he was one of my earliest inspirations where I was like, I can just be myself. I know I was definitely, you know, my goals were higher than that. I wasn't going to not read chat and just not say anything, but it showed me that I don't have to be that side.
It put a level of what's what I'm looking for. It I guess kind of helped instill that you didn't have to like be that fake face or have to put too much effort into reading the chat all the time, but you could be yourself, enjoy the game, but still like acknowledge the chat whenever it was appropriate, either in pausing gameplay or like you didn't have to overkill yourself.
Hanging out works.
Yeah. Just
hanging out with people. You know, sometimes people just want you to hang out.
Right. Which is important to make sure that you can still enjoy the game that you're playing and still participate in the game and not have to worry too much about being required to read the chat. So if you got a good community that understands that, then that's very fortunate. And I think a lot of people that watch streams I think we've gotten into the culture now where that expectation isn't quite as demanded. So I think that certainly helps.
Yeah, for sure.
I've only seen you stream Halo. So do you stream things other than Halo?
It's the only thing I do stream. Okay. No, I just stream Halo. I've had a couple oddballs where maybe I'm like, you know what, Chad, you guys want to watch me play like Siege for 30 minutes? And I'll stream Siege for like 30 minutes and get stream sniped. Or like, you know, I might play a game like off stream with some people that's not Halo, but variety streaming, which is insanely popular, is also extremely destructive to new creators. Like, it doesn't allow you to build a foundation. Something I've always brought with me when creating content was the understanding that people will watch you for usually 3 reasons. They like the game you're playing.
That's a big one.
They like the way you play it, and then they like you. And if you mess with any of those 3, they'll go find another streamer who does fit those 3. So like maybe they like how I play a game and they like who I am, but maybe they don't want to watch me play Happy Wars. So they're not going to watch me play Happy Wars because they want to watch a Halo streamer. You know, people who watch categories stay within those categories. And that's why I realized, like, one, it was no problem for me to stream Halo. I love Halo and I can play this every day, but in terms of streaming, I always had this fundamental understanding, like I need to stay consistent in what I stream as well, not just streaming or playing good when I stream. I need to be consistent in what I stream. And that builds the audience faster than anything else. And there's all sorts of stats that prove it and all that stuff.
Sure.
But I never went into the hard numbers. I just understood, like, if I want to build a family, I have to be in the same house every day.
Yep. And I mean, my follow channels would echo that sentiment through and through, because aside from friends that I follow that I've actually like met in real life and that, or either I'm good friends with, aside from like the handful of those I can count on 10 fingers, everyone else I follow is pretty much Halo.
Yep.
So that makes sense. I mean, that's I guess good that you caught on to that early.
Yeah, I see. It's too common that people do like variety way too early out the gate, and you see it a lot if you ever come around like someone's Twitch channel and you're like, this guy's like 8,000 followers, but he's only got like 10 views. Like, he's only got 10 viewers. What did he like take a break? And you look at his schedule and he's streaming 8 different games a week, and you're just kind of like, oh, that's probably why.
Interesting. Okay, some lessons learned for anyone who's interested in streaming out there, I guess.
Yeah, well, everyone's different, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who have found success doing exactly what I just said doesn't get you success. You know what I mean? But if there was one piece of advice, I were to give to a newer streamer, other than the obvious of like invest in a camera and get good audio, it would just be, don't stream 10 different games a week. Like, find a game or two and invest in them, invest in their communities, and the communities will invest in you.
Be a little more, focus more on consistency than.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially if you're trying to focus on actually building your stream. It's one thing if you're just kind of streaming for fun, like what I would primarily do. But if you're streaming to actually like intentionally make content, or it's something that you're striving towards, then yeah, definitely sounds like something that's worthy to consider.
Yeah, and it's definitely like, I don't blame other streamers right now for streaming other things. It's clear that Halo Infinite has its rough spots, and that a lot of people get really frustrated with it.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a headspace to be able to play this game every day.
Sure.
That's why, most of the people who are left are mainly just like creators. You don't see a lot of like little guys streaming the same game every day. You don't see them playing Halo every day. But
gotcha.
It's yeah. I don't blame them for not wanting to play it every day, or being like, I don't know how he plays it every day. Like, I definitely understand if you stream other things.
Right.
I won't hold it against you in these times.
But I mean, speaking of which, you managed to stream Halo pretty much. I mean, you're streaming at least 5 days a week, I think.
Yeah, about 6 to 7 days. I think it's like 6.2 out of 7 days a week. It's like some weird average. Basically, about like once a week, I'll take a break. And it's more so just I get caught up and I'm like, oh man, my laundry's getting behind. Like, I need to go take my car and get service. Like, I just suddenly realize I have so much to do. I'm like, I can't stream tomorrow. I got to get stuff done.
Real life kind of comes in and is like, knock knock.
Yeah, no, if it stems from the fact that I have a job and I'm a creator. So it's like, I don't have, I can't just wake up, do, whatever I want for the first 5 hours a day in the stream. I actually have to like go to work, come home, eat, start my stream, go to bed. Like,
I feel that
all of a sudden I realize like, oh, I haven't done anything outside of those two things for like the past week, and I need to get things done. But yeah, pretty much 6 or 7 days a week, I stream Halo.
And
just Halo.
For the most part, you stream with viewers, right? I mean, at least the time.
Yeah, pretty much every day I play BTB.
Nice.
with my viewers. I think it's a lot more inviting and growth capable space to be in. I was like, yeah, let's play BTB with viewers, and people come in, like people I've never seen before, like, hey, how do I get in your lobby? Oh, wait, what's your gamer tag? I'll add you. And then I add them and they hop in, they play, and they're like, hey man, that was great. Like, I'll be back tomorrow. Like, versus if I was in ranked, not playing with anyone, the only option is watch.
Right. What has been probably, or do you have kind of a cool moment where you've had someone asked to play on stream and then it's been a really good experience and you become friends with them or just had a really good time, an awesome play? Has there been anything that has really been a benefit to that kind of openness to bringing random people in from chat?
I mean, realistically, like those awesome moments happen probably every day, where I get at least one or two new guys, and then I see them tomorrow, and I see them the next day, and yeah, I don't really have an answer to that question, mostly just because it happens every day.
I mean,
and I think
if it happens every day, then that's
grown
cool.
So fast, yeah.
Because that means you're just enjoying it. People are enjoying it, and you're helping create that positive atmosphere.
Yeah, I think probably the only time I haven't had people, like the only time that would differ back when I streamed MCC is sometimes people would find me and they would love my content because I played Halo 4. Like they were like, "Oh, you're the only person I know of that plays Halo 4," and I was like, "What, dude? There's got to be like a couple more of them." Like I know Mazda plays it, but she's open at like 3 a.m. But when it came to Infinite and the whole community was rallied around like one game, you know, it was super easy to just be like, "Yeah, my lobby's open. Come play." And I stream, and they see I'm, you know, vibing with 40 viewers, and they pop in like, "Hey, can I join?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, come in here." And bada boom, there's another fan. There's another homie coming to hang out with me every night.
That's cool. Do you ever get to a point where you have a full lobby and you have to ask people to rotate out just to get other people in?
Every night.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's quite a hard day at work. Yeah. I don't ask people to leave, but it kind of works itself out because I play for 4 hours a day and most people don't play for 4 hours a day. So most people play for like an hour and a half, maybe 2.
So there's a rotation.
Yeah. The 12 I start with isn't the same 12 I finish with, but that constantly rotating, I'm always at least like 9 or 10 people. But like, you know, maybe I finish a game and 2 new people hop in, 2 old people leave, and then I play a couple of games and 2 more people leave and 2 new people hop in, and it just kind of rotates in itself. And I think people always understand, like I've built this whole like my lobby is open expectation. So I think people kind of know if they see my name and they see like a 10 out of 12 that they can join, and they'll join it, and then they pop in my stream, they say what's up, and we start playing. And I think people just kind of know, like, if I want to go play BTB, like, I'll just go play with XLR8. I'm sure he might have a space or 2, or I'll hang out for a minute until he has a space or 2, and
yeah,
we just vibe. It's pretty cool.
I think you're probably one of the only larger streamers that I've noticed that kind of has that default philosophy of having that open lobby. And not to say that some other streamers don't, but some of them have their little gangs that they play with regularly or have their squad that they go in with. But for as far as kind of the more well-known and larger streamers, I think you're probably one of the few that actually has that mentality of, no, come on in, come play some games with us.
Yeah, I think it's such an untapped mentality that a lot of streamers don't realize. Like, obviously, if you're like a ranked player, you know, Persecute isn't running open lobbies because he's like top 10 in the world. Like, he's not, you know, he obviously, the lower people would struggle, but like for a lot of the BTB creators or people who just play like social modes, like when someone comes into your stream or your YouTube video, your content, and they're just watching and they enjoy it, that's a fan. But when you play with them and you laugh with them and you engage in real time with them beyond just reading their message out loud, you're making a friend at that point, and they're gonna come back.
And yeah, that's really cool. Your friends list is probably in the thousands at this point.
I just checked it. I think it was yesterday. I think I have like 250 people added, but then the amount of people who added me is almost at 1,100 on Xbox.
That's not too bad.
So then. it's not terrible, but it's definitely on the rise. It was at like 600 when Infinite came out, like 700, something like that. So it's getting higher.
That's pretty big, yeah. That's certainly up there. That's cool, man. So you had mentioned earlier that you work for Apple now, or was that?
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff with Apple. No, I usually don't go too in depth on that.
Yeah, you don't have to. If you wanted to talk,
I really try to keep work separate.
Okay.
From my content, but yeah, my daytime job, well, morning/daytime, is Apple. I'll just say they are probably one of the greatest companies to work for, period.
Nice.
But I'd say they enable me to be able to create content. Just the way they empower.
You have a funding source of some kind.
They empower you as an individual, and they work with you in terms of scheduling and all sorts of crazy stuff. Like their leadership has changed my life in terms of being a positive person, and Microsoft's leadership has empowered me to be more of a leader role, like to lead by example. And I think those two combined have catapulted my life into such a great position where, you know, I'll meet someone who is just, they're toxic, and I'm like, nah, man, listen, we can be better than that. Like, come play with me. You know, you don't got to hate the game. Like, I got you. Get in here. Let's have some fun. And I actively try to help others and stuff. It's been awesome working between the two.
That's awesome. And the fact that you've gotten to really take or just like learn from that experience, but also like working with the community too. That's only going to help, I think, you and everyone else that you have the opportunity to influence. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm genuinely happy that I have a good foundation, and it resonates so well through everything I do. And it's wild how, like, it's this weird surrealness of realizing, like, when I see other creators that are 10 times larger than me, and sometimes they do things or they say things, I'm like, why? What are you doing? Like, what?
Like, why are you hurting this?
Doesn't, like, it's not so much of like what makes you think this is a good idea, and more so of just, sometimes I see things, I'm like, why do you not have something in your head that doesn't like try to stop you from this? And I think that's what helps me so much in content, as well as, you know, knowing like, if these individuals saw what you posted, or what would this person think, or like, I just have these moments where all the people who have impacted me, and all the leadership roles that have made an impact on me, really influence what I do and elevate it to a better level because of it.
And that's important, especially given the state the community's in, and some of the comments that get brought up every now and then.
There's so many people, you know, just they're taking low blows and grabbing a low hanging fruit, and I'm just like, man, like, people are gonna remember this. You know, I have talks with people on stream about other creators sometimes, and you know, people remember what you did back in Halo 5, or what you did back on MCC, like who you used to be. Like, those, you know, it doesn't matter how good of a person you become, like, people will remember the things you used to do. And I think setting yourself up for success really involves, you know, a lot of self-reflection and understanding that, like, you know, you could make this post shitting on the game and get 1,000 likes doing it, and get, you know, make 50 followers out of it. But, you know, when your 5 minutes of fame blows over, people are going to look at you as the guy who shit on the game.
Yep.
Not the guy who has more followers. So it's definitely something I'm happy. I'm happy that Apple and Microsoft have made such significant impacts on my life.
That's great. Yeah. I think I would say the same thing with, I've had a few different just opportunities with the studio, through being able to go to PAX and do the studio visits, and all the people that I've gotten to meet, and just learn more about the gaming industry and how the studio works and operates, and just being able to have that understanding and that rapport with people, and just getting to know and understand that they're people just like us. They're passionate about the game. They're passionate about making a game that's fun and enjoyable, and not everyone's perfect, and not everyone's going to like everything that comes out of it. So as long as there's the understanding of, hey, people are going to do the best they can, and with the best intentions, then I think that's just the best thing to really have the mindset of. At the end of the day,
they're just humans.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like us. I would never forget when I was at Outpost Discovery in Philadelphia, and I was sitting down at the stage I was sitting in one of the chairs, like waiting for it to start, and I was looking at my phone, and someone sits right beside me. Now, like, I was the only one sitting because it was like quite a while before it started. So I was like, who's this like weirdo sitting beside me? And I turned my head to my right, and it's Unisheck. And he's just sitting in the chair. He's like, "What's up, man?" I was like, in my head, I'm like it was before I even started content. So I'm just like this little like Halo 5 player. I was like, Unisheck just sat down beside me, just like, "Hey, man," like a normal Tuesday.
Yeah.
I was like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "Hey, how you doing? Like, you excited for the play day?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, we're waiting for more people to show up. It's a little slow this morning, so I don't know when it'll start, but are you enjoying your time?" He just asked me questions like, "You enjoying your time?" I'm like, "Yeah." And we ended up, I told him, I was like, "Well, you know, I'll get up and I'll bring some other people and we'll play some games and maybe draw a crowd." And I went up and I played like 5 different games before I hopped off and other people got a chance and all that. And it was such a cool moment of just interacting with them like they are the same level as me. Like it was like a normal Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like in that moment, it was just me and John just chilling.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was
just
really
a random like,
I'll definitely remember that a while. Yeah, he's just like, "What's up, man?" I'm like, "What's up, man?" Like, oh my God.
That's really cool. Well, it's been an honor to have you on. Go ahead and give a shout to your socials and your stream, because for the content that you make, again, you're a really positive outlook on the community, which I think people really need out there, and you're out there streaming. So if anyone's interested in joining up on you, why don't you give the folks where they can find you?
Yeah, I stream every day on Twitch, XLR8_live, every day around 8 p.m. Eastern time. I got a YouTube that's coming. Realistically, just search my name up and maybe type in like Halo. It'll fill in all the good stuff with all the good metrics I've been having in lately. But you know, I'll be here for the long run. If you don't find me now, you'll probably hear me eventually later, or something will happen. But you know, I'm just excited for the future and seeing all the fun that we'll have with all the future coming. So
very cool.
Thank you for having me.
What kind of content are you looking to put on your YouTube channel?
I usually do condensed replays. So, you know, I understand, especially when I stream, like the times that not everybody can be there. Not everybody can watch. And YouTube is somewhere I need to continue to build, because I want to be able to provide good, fun content and gameplay to people every hours of the day, where, you know, and we have a big lack there right now. It's all clickbaity and, you know, well, the future of this and this dev said this on Twitter. There's a lot of room for the traditional style of gameplay again. And I'm excited to sort of get everything out to people on YouTube. So
very cool. That'll be really cool to see.
Me.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll get the opportunity to play along with you at some point on one of your game nights. I know I've mentioned a few times about trying to hop in, so hopefully I can find a free night to do that. And
yeah, anyone and everyone is welcome. If I've never met you before, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on. Hopefully we can have you on again at some point in the future for some roundtable or some other kind of discussion, but appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. And for everyone else listening, thanks for downloading and listening to this little special episode. Hopefully get to a few more guests coming in the next couple of weeks. We plan to have the maker of Halo 3 Sunrise, which is not Halo 3 Sapien, which is what I called it last week, on the show this coming weekend. That will probably be another offline recording, but this person's managed to bring back the Halo 3 Xbox 360 matchmaking servers through a mod. So we're going to be interviewing them about what it took to make this thing come back to life on Xbox 360. So look forward to that. We'll be back on our regular show on Thursday night on Twitch, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll catch you all there, and thanks for listening.
Guys.